Right, so good afternoon, everybody. You all know me, Jeff Montgomery, Safety and Technical Officer. We've been doing this now for a number of years, and again, I see the same old faces year in and year out, so it's really good to have you back. Thank you for being here, although our numbers are diminishing. I remember the first couple of years, there was quite a few of us, okay? We're now slowly diminishing, but that's, life. However, we've opened it up for other ratings next door as well. So now we have category system instructors. We've got AFF instructors involved in the industry day. So it's really good to sort of get everybody, all ratings together. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce Nicola Hobday. So Nicola is our compliance officer. All right, she is an independent contracted by British Skydiving to look at matters of compliance, okay? So the intention of this seminar is I'm going to spend about 15 to 20 minutes. That's what I said early on this morning, and it dragged on a little bit, talking about statistics and the trends that we're seeing throughout 2022. And then we're going to do about another 15, 20 minutes with Nicola in some areas of compliance, okay? Just to bring you up to speed on what we're seeing out there across the UK. Right, so what we'll do first of all is we'll look at our statistics for 2022. If that works. Okay, so we're looking at a 12-year period in terms of number of descents made. So these figures that we've got in front of us are all types of descents, including tandem and parachute displays. Right, so you can see we've gone up, up, and up, a couple of years coming sort of down, and then the COVID roller coaster. Okay, so some of the data that we'll be looking at, all right, 2020, 2021, we don't really take into consideration. However, we still have some indicators from that. And then as you can see from COVID, we then back up, all right, and then we are probably one of the fourth best years that we've had. I think you'll all agree that our summer this year was fantastic. So in terms of descents made, we've done a fair few. Okay, so again, looking at the amount of total descents, this is how it's broken down. The majority of those descents, almost 70% of those descents are made by our licensed members. And then we're looking at the red part of the pie, 23% of those were tandem descents. That is where you as tandem instructors have all taken part on. And then we have a breakdown from category system at 2%, student freefall, which is the purple, at 3%. Now, student freefall is a combination of both the category system freefall and AFF. All right, and that is AFF consolidations, okay? And then the 3% for AFF is AFF jumps levels 1 through to 8. Okay, so let's look at tandem now. We've just had the best year on tandem descents that we've ever had, yeah? And we did a total of 60,135 tandem descents, yeah? So again, a couple of variables for that. We had a great summer. Right, I think COVID, everybody wants to get out, do more stuff, all right, and we've certainly had a boost in that respect. Yeah, so again, in terms of the tandems year by year, there is an up trend line that we're seeing throughout a 12-year period, okay? Right, so total student trained now, okay? This is including category system, including AFF, and including tandem. So we have, again, another record high at 64,000. Again, the vast majority of those are clearly tandem students. So again, 95%, 64,000 trained, 95% of those students trained are all tandem, as you can see from the pie. And again, this one here just again represents the amount of 60,000, that's the tandem students. And then we've got the bars at the bottom, the red is category system students trained, and then the blue bar is AFF students trained. Right, so now we're going to focus on tandem specific. We're looking at malfunctions, incidents, and deployment problems. So again, we're looking at a 12-year trend here, and year by year, we've got at the top, you've got the number of descents. So hopefully wherever you can see that, make out those numbers properly. So you've got the total amount of tandem descents that have been carried out over that year. The percentage figure that we can see is the percentage of incident, i.e., so for 2010, we had 0.15%, all right, of injury reports. So that is the percentage compared to all the amount of jumps that we've done is not even 1% in terms of malfunction and deployment problems, okay? So 0.8% for 2022 on a maximum year in terms of the descents that we made. And then below, you've got 1 in 1,279, okay? And that is the risk of malfunction or deployment problem, right? So if we now compare 2021, we did less tandems, all right? And now we've done more tandems and our number's gone up, and that's what we want to see. Less incident reports, okay, coming through. Yeah? So 2022 has actually been a good year. Some of the stuff that we've been talking over a number of years appears to be getting through, all right? And that's what we're here to do. Right, so let's look at tandem off landings. So again, over the years, just going back to 2016, that's when I started to look into off landings in a little bit more detail. I mean, we have got all the information for the off landings, but I haven't got the time to spend researching and looking at it. Okay, so from 2016, I started recording them, okay, so that we can get now a trend. And now we have a good trend as to how we're looking. However, in 2017, high number of tandem off landings, right? So again, we need to remind ourselves every time a parachutist, okay, lands off a PLA, right, that parachutist is going to be at risk, especially, okay, if that is a tandem, all right? Tandem students off the PLA, higher risk of injury every time, okay? So again, things to consider to avoid the off landings, ensuring our spots are not too deep, ensuring our weather conditions are suitable, we've got good spots, all that good stuff, yeah? Right, down trend line. However, I'm not going to get too excited about that because I know that most or some off landings are not reported. Okay? However, 7 tandem off landings on the best year that we've had, okay, is not a bad number. However, we'd like to see no off landings. All right? Okay, so risk of tandem incident then. Looking at the figures at the top, you've got your numbers, and we've got 1 in 683 tandem descents, something doesn't go according to plan. Yeah. So again, that number is on the rise, which is good, looking at the amount of tandems that we've done. Okay, but again, something goes wrong. So it's either a malfunction, we've got an injury, got an off landing, or something that's not quite what we want. So, looking at the bar, 88 reports, okay, total. So those 88 reports are specific to everything that relates to tandem, okay? And then we break those down into malfunction and injuries. Okay, so total amount of tandem descents, again, over the year period. And what we've got here is a percentage of individual reports that are specific to tandem from all the reports that we've received, right? So this year we received 404 reports, okay, for everything, okay? And 22% of that was specific to tandem. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to just talk about the 118 alphas, malfunction deployment problems, yeah, and how we're going to split that down. So they're sorted into, or categorized into 2. We've got non-canopy, so any malfunction deployment problems, deployment problems that we may have, okay, and then canopy related, i.e. malfunctions. Okay, and this does help separate it from instructor-induced reserve deployments from kit maintenance and packing issues. Okay, so again, we've seen these figures before from previous years, so I'll quickly run through it. Okay, the amount of significant non-canopy incidents that we had. Okay, I'm not going to go through those all because we've seen this. However, I'll go to 2020 and 2021. So, in 2020, we had 11 reports. 10 of those involved reserve deployments. Okay, and that gives us an average of 0.54 per 1,000 descents carried out. We are having a report, okay, with a total of 20,331 descents. 2021, 51 reports, 50 reserve deployments, gives us an average of 1.8 incidents per 1,000 descents, okay? And we've got 46,177 descent jumps. 3 baglocks, 2 uninflated drogue and tows, okay, 1 inflated drogue and tow, broken steering line, 4 drogue entanglements, 2 premature reserve deployments. Right, looking at 2022, 47 reports. So again, more jumps, less reports. That's what we want, okay? 45 reserve deployments out of the 47 reports. 0.78, okay? So again, that's now gone down on the average for 1,000 jumps, which is good. 60,135 descent jumps, yeah? 2 baglocks, 2 uninflated drogue and tows or knotted drogues, 1 broken steering line, 1 broken kill line, 1 drogue entanglement, 1 premature reserve deployment, 2 out of sequence, 1 AAD found switched off after the descent. Okay. One of the out of sequence was on an instructor course. Okay. Right, so what we're going to do, let's quickly look at a couple of case studies. So in March this year, we had 1 out of sequence. The instructor has 794 tandem descents, 5 in the previous 3 months. So again, start of the season. And this one's quite different, I suppose. So as you can see, the instructor's exiting the aircraft at this stage here, right? And even before he reaches around with the right arm to grab the drogue, he's coming in with his left arm and he pulls primary release. Okay, so this particular system is a next. Okay, so he goes, pulls the primary release, hasn't even thrown the drogue yet. All right, and at that stage there, he then realized what he'd done. He threw the drogue, and that gave him a main canopy deployment. Okay, so again, the instructor was stopped, retrained by an examiner, and then allowed to continue. So there's that was the main canopy deployment after pitching the drogue. Okay, second one then, 15th of the 4th, 22, no drogue, out of sequence. All right. 108 tandems, 66 of the previous 3 months. All right. I have no video on this one. Okay. But what the instructor did, exited the aircraft, did not put the drogue out. Yeah. Completed the entire skydive, pulled drogue release, nothing happened. Okay. He then realized that he was going slightly unstable. All right. And then he pulled reserve. Okay. Again, instructor was suspended, retrained, and then allowed to continue. Right, not to drogue with the bridle, 108 tandems, 66 in the previous 3 months. I have no video of this, but I do have a still of what caused the incident. Again, let's think about how we are packing the drogues, okay, how we're getting those into the back pocket in order to, when the drogue is coming out freely, okay, without any chances of getting knotted. And again, we're not really chucking it out straight out the door. Okay, we want to be exiting the aircraft, flying position, okay, nice deployment to pitching the drogue. 14th of the 622, not to drogue with the bridle. This was on a tandem instructor course. This was the second jump with a bag, and the instructor packed this himself. You can see from here, from that still photograph there, again, you can just make out the way the bridle is sticking out here, and then on a subsequent one there, as he comes out, there you've got causing the knot in the bridle. So again, what we're seeing here is packing errors. Yeah, now it's unlikely that you as tandem instructors end up packing the main canopy. But if you do, then you've got to make sure you're paying attention to the drogue. Okay? Obviously, on the course, the person had packed it themselves, so he learned the quick way, and the hard way. Okay, so broken kill line, 94 tandems, 94 in the previous 3 months. Okay, the main container opened as the kill line broke, yeah, which gave him a main canopy deployment. However, on deployment of the main, they saw he had one broken line, and they followed it with a reserve drill. So this is the instructor now going for pull. And as you can see there, you can just make out the mother ring on the drogue riser, okay, just coming off at that point there. And then it just rides up that kill line, all right, and it snaps at the top. And the instructor then continued into free fall. And again, the main deployed as the bag came out of the container, and then elected to carry out the reserve drill because he had a broken line. Okay, so Form 281. All right, this is just a quick reminder for you if you don't know or you're not familiar with it. Okay, these are the guidelines for some of the component parts on tandem systems, okay, as to how many jumps we should be placing on those component parts, okay? So what we want to be looking at, this one here, is the drogue center line, okay? So if we're now going into this area here, i.e. that kill line starts to reach about 300 descents, then we need to start thinking about replacing that kill line. Okay, we do not want to be allowing kill lines to be broken, okay, when we have students on the front. All right, and this is just, again, a reminder from certain component parts. Okay, and again, the drogue assembly different to the kill line, right, 500 to 800. All right, so hopefully you can familiarize yourselves with that and maybe potentially speak to the packers, because if you're not dealing with the blue books, then you can actually inform the packers to make sure that they either inform you when you take the equipment, okay, or you're keeping an eye on it yourselves. All right? Yous are the one jumping the equipment and not the packers. Okay, bag lock, 2,000 tandems, 200 in the previous 3 months. So what we've got here is the instructor on pull. As you can see, there goes the bag, right, coming out, and you can see at the point there, you've got suspension line, okay, keeping it all tight, and a lot of sort of loose line coming out of the stows. Okay, so again, it's all packing related, right? So keeping on top of packing, making sure the packers are doing a good job and not rushing, okay, is going to alleviate this, right? Now, as the bag lock happened here, the instructor realized what's going on, initiated the reserve drill, pull the cutaway pad, okay, and at the point of pulling the cutaway pad, the 3 rings did disconnect, but the riser didn't clear from the 3 ring. Okay, so the bag is still up there, but it's not getting pulled out. Okay, it took longer than expected for it to physically come off, okay, the rings. Yeah, and at that point there, you can now see there's your bag, and it then eventually lifted. So it took about probably 2.5 seconds before anything happened. Okay, and there's already all that drag behind there. Okay, it's a bit of an unusual one. Okay, so drogue entanglement, 16 tandems, 16 in the previous 3 months. Had just got his tandem instructor rating, okay? Quite a competent person throughout the course. A couple of reasons behind potentially what's happened. Yeah, potentially confident, all right? And certainly not expecting something going to go wrong, because every single exit that instructor done till then was a good exit. In fact, it was a very good exit, okay? So, couple of things. You can see the instructor position himself in the door, okay? And now we look at the position of the student's hands, okay? The student, okay, where should the hands of the student be? On the harness, okay? That's what they get briefed to do, right? So at this stage here, the student is doing a gesture with the hands that's got to do what I believe is a faith gesture, okay? So they're putting their hands, okay, in front of their face as a gesture of faith. So, as they exit, the instructor goes a little bit sort of square onto the slipstream from the right-hand side. And again, keep looking at the position of the student's hands, and then the student is straight out there, taking control of some of the exit. All right, so there's a combination of 2 things. Potentially poor positioning in the door to release into the airflow, okay, and then the student doing their own thing with the hands. This goes to the instructor to pitch, okay, to turn right side down, and then he's committed. Reached round, still not in a stable position, reached round, okay, and let the drogue go. So as the drogue goes past the leg, and there you go. Okay, luckily enough, the instructor carried out the correct drill, okay, and pulled the reserve. Luckily enough, there was no entanglement between the reserve free bag and the drogue. It deployed cleanly. So again, on that, we've got to make sure we're not rushing our position in the door. We get position in the door, good positions. Students are supposed to be hands where they're supposed to be, as briefed, okay? Move their hands if need be. You do your checks in the door, exit safely. Okay, so let's look at canopy incident reports. I'm going to skip those to get to the nitty-gritty. So we're going to look at 19 to 21. Okay, so what we've got here is the amount of incidents involving canopies, okay? And what we're looking at here is 70% of those were all due to packing, yeah? 88% packing if we want to include twists, because we do get a high volume of incident reports where we've got twisted lines and the instructor has to carry out the reserve drill due to packing, due to the twist. So again, 88% of those incident reports, all right, is involving packing issues, including twists. 92% in 2021, poor packing. 2022, so 36 malfunctions. There's our average 0.59 per 1,000 jumps. Okay, 60,000 descents. 6 damaged canopies due to wear and tear, 2 broken. All right, either the canopy itself and lines. Steering lines broken, 2 brake locks, 3 distorted or line overs, 8 tension knots, 2 spinning canopies, 11 twists, 2 hard openings. 66 of those related to packing, and if we include twists, it gives us 94%. How many of you pack? Not many. Okay. So are those that pack, how many of you have had twists, or have you had to cut twists away?
I had twists, but that was in the others, I didn't pack it.
So how many twists have you packed?
Well, I've never had a cutaway in my own pack job.
There you go. Never had a cutaway in his own pack job. That tells us something, doesn't it? Okay, it's worthwhile PTOs regularly reviewing packing and training procedures, okay, ensuring that we keep on top of any wear and tear of the component parts, and we keep going back to the blue books. All right, if we do not have oversight of the blue books, we don't know what's going on. Okay? Okay, let's look at the injuries now. So those are the total amount of injuries that we've received over the 12-year period. 35 injury reports in 2022. So again, looking at 60,000, 0.06%, okay, is the rate for the injury, and then we've got 1 in 1,718 descents, we have an injury report, okay? However, the classification of that injury will vary, okay, because an injury could be a cut, yeah? We also include people passing out on the canopy as an injury, because we do not know why they've passed out, okay? So, when we then compare it to serious injuries, okay, and serious injuries is fractures, breaks, all that sort of stuff, okay? So now we're looking at the numbers, all right, and we've had 12 serious injuries in 2022, okay, which again is on par with 2021, but again, we've done a lot more jumps this year, okay? So we're actually on a safer trend in that respect. Yes, Ryan?
Of interest, do you include dislocated shoulders?
Yes.
In serious injuries?
Yes.
Okay.
Which perhaps makes it look worse, but nonetheless, it's a serious injury.
Yep.
Any questions at this stage? No? Okay, so talking about dislocations, Ryan, these are the amount of dislocations that we had per year. So going back to 2022, we had 2 dislocations, okay, which is not bad, all right? So again, the way I'm seeing this is the message on the medicals and any self-declaration that people are doing, okay, we will keep pushing the message that if you've had a shoulder injury, you need to declare it. Okay, a lot of people don't say that. They may think they've been, you know, they're fit and they had a shoulder injury 5-6 years back, but as soon as you get them out into free fall, shoulder just pops. Okay, so again, it's just making people aware. Now, if the instructors are not doing the paperwork, i.e. booking the students in and getting medicals and doing all that sort of stuff, that person who deals with the documentation needs to be prompted about, have you had any previous dislocations? You need to be making these people aware and get them to declare it before we get them in the plane. Okay, so 2027 landing injuries that included 1 fracture, 18 landing injuries including 6 fracture, 2 dislocations, 19 landing injuries including 9 fractures. Okay, so again, we categorize now injury reports into non-landing and landing. So we've had 8 non-landing, 3 in the aircraft, 1 epileptic fit in the aircraft, 1 unresponsive in the aircraft, 1 twisted ankle before we got on board the aircraft. Okay. 3 dislocated shoulders, 1 pain to the shoulder. So again, all these dislocated shoulders, okay, not necessarily dislocation. We know that 2 were properly dislocated, 2 are just pained, okay, and 1 wasn't reported. All right, but I put it in there because they never told us what the injury was towards the end. Okay, so again, if we know that anybody's injured, we want to ideally chase up what the injury was, okay, and communicate it back to the office so we can amend our spreadsheets. 1 cut lip on opening, and this was due to a hard opening, which I'll show you later. And then we had 1 cut thumb on a hard opening. 2 passing out on the canopy. So that's a repeated slide. Okay, so fractured tailbone, 27 tandems, and 27 in the previous 3 months. This is one of the common trends we're seeing now, okay? The student is actually impacting the ground before the instructor is making any contact. Or the instructor's legs are that wide that we're allowing the student's coccyx to make contact with the ground first. So, side-on view of the landing. Okay, now look at the position of the student's legs. They're quite high. And we can also just about make out the bottom of the student. We see that? So, at this point here, the conditions on the day were nil winds. So the landing was a very quick landing. So it's going to be a sliding landing. Now the instructor actually puts the feet down before there's contact, but the feet are off to the side. And looking at the speed of the landing, there's absolutely nothing that they're going to do. Coccyx hits, and as soon as the coccyx hits, we'll see in a slide shortly how the student lifts in pain, okay, in a position there. So again, we can see the instructor's about to make contact with the ground, okay, but we're exposing the bottom of the student. So legs, and we see it on job zones, a lot of people coming in, instructors with the legs really wide. Instructor's legs should be behind, okay, with the buttocks of the student in this area here, where possible. That way, if there's contact between the ground and the instructor that takes the impact and not the student. And they're sliding on top of your lap and not in between your thighs. Okay, whiplash, cut to the hand, 510 tandems, 86 in the previous 3 months. Work. Again, we want to be thinking about packing, maintenance of equipment. Okay, we know that sometimes we do get hard openings, okay, but in that particular case, there wasn't much injury. We've had a couple of cases where people have strained necks, etc. But in this particular case, it was just a cut to the thumb as the student went to grab the harness, and the harness cut their thumb. Okay. So you can see there from the deployment, as the main's coming out of the bag, position of the slider on that one there is just not, it's at an angle. Okay, not catching the air, and off we go. By the time the slider reaches down to the risers, it's just quite bad. Okay, broken ankle, 7,000 tandems, 200 in the previous 3 months. Right, again, this is what I'm talking about, the students making contact with the ground first, right? So looking at the position of the student's legs, could that be better? They could probably be a little bit higher, okay, but potentially not to the extreme that we just saw in the previous slide. Who's making contact first? Okay, I do apologize for some of the quality because this is taken from video, so when we want to try and get clarity from a still, it's quite hard. Okay, so now the students actually made contact with the ground before the instructor. Now, let's look at the condition of the grass. It's dry and slippery. So what happened, all right, is the student, one shoe slipped quite easily, the other didn't. And you can just see there how it's completely bent, all right, and fracturing the ankle. Okay, students by BMI. So this is a picture that we had in 2021. Now, when we talk about the BMI, okay, it is just a picture, and we can't get too hung up of it because the information that we've got, we generate from PIMS. Okay, so we've got approximately about 3 years of information now, okay, from all the students registered, okay, in terms of their height and weight, which gives us a BMI picture. However, the data being inputted into PIMS is incorrect. People are inputting it wrongly, which gives us wrong figures. So we can only work with certain amount of data. Okay, so this was 2021. If you're all familiar with BMI, so up to 25 is classed as normal. Anything above 25, we're now looking at the overweight or very overweight. And then as soon as we reach 30, we go into the obese category. Okay. This is the BMI range for 2022. Again, looking at the amount of people, we've got up to 25, 4,000 of our tandem students are within the right BMI range, okay? And then we start to go into the overweight category, all right? However, look at what's taking place with the obese. And if I show you this one here, this is by gender now, okay? This is where we can start to see a bit more of a trend, all right? So we've got blue as male, pink as female, okay? And as you can see, we've got a lot more overweight males, right? But as we then start to move down into the obese category, we then start to see the females overtaking the males. Okay, and again, what we know is that anybody within the obese category and a sort of age, okay, they are at more risk of injury, and we'll look at that shortly. How am I doing, Nicola? It's lunchtime anyway, so we're great. Okay, quickly going on this. So this is the breakdown in terms of percentage to number of females. 11,000 in normal, 6,000 overweight, 2,000 obese. Males, we've got 10,000 normal, 12,000 overweight, 2,000 obese. Okay. Right, so student risk of injury with the BMI. Okay. Obviously, as soon as we get anything past 25, we're going into the higher bracket of risk. You can see that there, how this bar here now, okay, starts to go out, and then we've got an average on the right-hand side there, puts it all together at 0.54, okay, every 1,000 descents. We're going to see an injury, okay? But again, those in the category, okay, in the obese category or the overweight are going to be more at risk. Okay, so this is now variation with age. So we're now looking at 40 to 49, 50 to 59, 60 to 69. We start to see a spike, okay, and those above 70, we're now seeing a pronounced spike, okay. However, on an average, 0.54 again, right? Okay, so now we're looking at risk of injury variation with the body weight and gender. So females above the weight of 70, okay, we're spiking in that respect there, okay. Males over the weight of 80, okay, you can see it's higher, but again, this is the one that's higher risk. So now we're including it in, so the risk factors, this includes now age and BMI combined and the gender combined as well. All right. So 70 plus, as you can see there, we've got 2.67 per 1,000 jumps. Okay. Right. The message that we want to put into this, those above 40, okay, within solo skydiving. So for those that are multi-rated and you're dealing with CSI and AFF, okay, anybody over the age of 40 has a higher risk of injury. Anybody over the age of 60 has a higher risk of injury for tandem. BMI, anybody over the age 30 for solo or tandem. Weight, 80 kg for males, 70 kgs for females. And the higher risk gender is female. Okay. Okay, so what we can do, just because we're on the BMI, like I said, we don't want to get too fixated on BMI, but BMI, okay, doesn't mean that people can't jump. It just means we can put measures in place to actually keep them a little bit safer, right? And one of those is we can actually use bigger parachutes with softer landings, okay? Use your softest landing instructor. Those experienced instructors that can land in pretty much any condition, okay, use them. For those that are into the higher weight and BMI risk, delaying the jump until wind conditions are ideal. Okay, we don't necessarily have to jump the heavier people in ill winds. Let's just wait until there's a little bit more wind, okay, as part of our risk assessment. Yeah, we're just going to wait for the winds to pick up a little bit before we get you in the air. Okay, and again, the wind will reduce forward speed, not gusting or turbulent, okay, or on limits. Okay, so we've also got to take that into consideration as well. And declining to jump them at all. That's how we keep people safe. Okay, very quickly before I hand over to Nicola. 2022, that I am aware of, there has been 5 tandem fatalities. 4 of those in the USA. 3 low turns to the ground. Okay, all 3 in breach of USPA's BSRs. Are you all familiar with the USPA BSR where you're not allowed to do any more than a 90-degree turn below 500 feet? Yeah? So that is a rule that they have. We do not have that rule. Okay? 3 fatalities were all, from what I'm led to believe, possible hook turns. Okay? And then one of the fourth fatalities was an incorrect emergency procedure where the instructor pulled the reserve before cutting away, which led to an entanglement between the reserve and the main, okay, and then rotating malfunctions, spinning, spinning, spinning. Instructor took the impact on their back, student survived. All low-term fatalities, student and instructor dead. The one in Germany, double fatality, student and instructor. Student was 14 years old. I don't have any details on that, I'm afraid. Okay, I'm still trying to find out the ins and outs. Talking to some people, even the safety people from Belgium who are here today, they don't have any information on it. Okay, right. That concludes my bit of the statistical side, so I'm now going to hand over to Nicola.
I don't know, but just put me off. I don't think I want to do a tandem now. Too much risk.
But we stay within the rules.
That's what they all say. So, I do some work for British Skydiving, as Jeff said. I'm independent and I look after the ethical hotline and I help British Skydiving with their policies and procedures. Okay, so one of the things that have come up this year, there's been, obviously after COVID, everybody is out wanting to do things that they perhaps missed during COVID, and there's an increase in people wanting to do skydiving. Now, I know in the past it was quite a unique little group of people that always did the skydiving, and I shouldn't say this, but it's mainly men. But I think that's changing. How do we treat those individuals that come and want to do skydiving? And as Jeff said, there's a lot more people wanting to do tandems than there was previously. So one of the things that I'm looking at specifically is around our behaviour, how we treat people, and the culture in which we work in. So I'm here just to remind you of the importance of how you want to be treated and how you should be treating your customers. So I wanted to make you aware of the issues that are arising, and it's not just about doing the right thing, but also safeguarding yourselves. How will that impact you? Things to think about. So, Jeff, I haven't got the clicker. So, I'm not going to stand up here and preach to you, but I want you to think about your actions. And I want you to work into small groups. And these are the questions that I want you to think about. So there's two slides and two groups of questions, okay? If you can answer the questions that I've set on the first slide and not think about the future, because we'll be doing that in a minute. So I'll give you the scenario in a minute. And these are the things I want you to think about. What do you do at your drop zone? Okay? What do you think about your position as an instructor? And if you were a student, what are you expecting? Okay, so those are the three questions. Got to keep that in your mind. I want you to work in small groups. I want you to discuss it. And here is your scenario. During the 11-point check, prior to moving towards the door, you reach over to check the student's chest straps to ensure they're fitted correctly. You then check the leg straps are correctly fitted around the top of the thighs. Think about those actions. That's what I want you to focus on. Think about what you have told them, what you haven't told them, what are they expecting? What have you trained them to do? Okay, so if we have one small group, that back group there, one group here, and one group at the front here, so 4 groups. Discuss that scenario, please. You've got 5 minutes. Okay, you've nearly finished. 1 more minute. I'm going to ask each group to come back with some of their thoughts.
Other stuff, safety brief, you'll mention the fact that you will get a check of your chest strap. I presume other DZs do the same. And individual instructors, again, you'd expect that you would inform the tandem student at the stage of checking their chest strap on board the aircraft as well.
Is that part of your remit when you're doing your tandem?
Yes.
Or is that something that you think you should do?
That's what we said happens. Now the question's changed about 11-point check. We need another 5 minutes.
You can have another 5 minutes in a minute. Okay, this front group.
We pretty much discussed that clear communication from your briefing on the ground. Clear communication from the briefing on the ground. And then also when you are doing your check and you have to do your chest strap, asking permission of your student, no matter if it's a male or female, is asking, may I check the chest strap? It's for a safety reason. If you physically can't check it, you ask your jump master or you ask the instructor that's sitting in front of that student to have a look over to make sure that their chest strap is done. That's what we...
Yep, well done. This side?
I think you said everything that's been said. I think clear communication on the ground. No surprises to anybody. Explain what you're going to do next. Ask for permission. Likewise, also when the canopy's open, if you're going to loosen chest straps, that kind of thing. Just explaining what's coming next. There's no surprises. Don't leave yourself open. Try and give those explanations and briefings on the ground in front of other people. Repeat it again just before you're getting on the aircraft if you can. All that kind of good stuff.
Yep. Okay, well done. So, you've all told me what you do, but it doesn't all happen in reality. Okay? So some of the things that we're going to be looking at is how we do that, how we monitor that, how we ensure that we safeguard those individuals as well as yourselves. So I'd like you all to think in your groups again, what could we do to bring better practice in place? One, to safeguard the student. One, to safeguard yourselves in your position as instructors. And if you are concerned about anything, who would you raise that concern to? And then finally, thinking about what training you might need. Okay? So you've got another 5 minutes to think about those 4 questions regarding the same incident. Okay? And what you think would be good practice. This group at the front, on the left-hand side, what would you recommend? What do you think is good practice?
Jacko's got some good ideas he'd like to share.
That was great safeguarding.
As the most junior tandem instructor in the room. So in terms of safeguarding, it's, how do you police your, so you got right at the top, you've got policy, so DBS checks, sort of continued internal vetting and self-policing of instructors. So, making sure that you have a safe environment for the students to be in. In terms of your position as an instructor, always having somebody to help you when you're doing the briefs, never going into putting yourself into a position where you could be questioned about, what you did or didn't do whilst the student was around, your behaviour, your ethics, etc. So, for example, at Netheravon, we try to do things as a group in the middle of the packing hall so that you are constantly observed by the senior tandem instructors, by all the AFFIs. The chief instructor can see what you're doing. She can drop in whenever she wants, watch our briefs, etc. So having that open and honest conversation between the tandem instructors, with a bit of internal auditing from our sort of chief instructor, from the secretary of the APA, etc. In terms of if we're concerned, well, there's obviously yourself. We can speak directly to our chief instructor about any infringements or anything that we feel is unsafe. And we could also go to the chief pilot, who's also fairly experienced skydiver himself, or the secretary, who's effectively our day-to-day operations manager. And then in terms of training, for us, it goes on like a case-by-case basis. So I mean, well, I thought the training that we had on the new training that you get on the TI course that we did in 21 was pretty good in terms of like, right, this is how instructors should behave. This is your demeanor. This is how you approach. This is the safeguarding. That was pretty good. And then in terms of internal stuff, you know, we do our annual safety day. We come to this. And then we just reinforce the ethics as we do that. And then also what's quite good is as through the year you get new TIs coming through, there's all those stories from, you know, way back when it was a little bit inappropriate. And those tend to get sort of trotted out every now and then just to explain how not to behave in front of students and sort of paying customers. Yeah, and then sort of trying to inculcate that into the core of our behaviour seems to work.
Right, the left-hand side.
Exactly what Jacko said, but to summarise, communication for 1 and 2, your chief instructor for number 3, and just respect and dignity to yourself and others for number 4, which is just pure common sense, hopefully, and the way that we all behave.
I wished it was that simple. Right, okay. Anybody I missed? This front group.
We pretty much had the same as most. We pretty much had the same as most, but I think what we focus on is number 3 as well. If you've got a concern, who do you inform? I think personally every DZ should have a safeguarding lead within the PTO, where if you've got a concern, go and see this person. They can advise on the best practice of what you need to do. We've got one at our club, so...
Which club are you from?
Go Skydive. Go Skydive, yeah.
Okay, yes. So, anybody else aware of any safeguarding leads in their drop zones?
I haven't been to a drop zone recently where they don't have a safeguarding policy and a safeguarding lead. I've not heard of that.
Yep. So, I'm trying to change that. It is a legal requirement. Okay? So, you have to be responsible as individuals, as instructors, to know what you should be doing. So, but you are responsible adults. Okay, you are responsible in your jobs as instructors, and you need to be aware of who your safeguarding lead is, where you can get that advice from. Are you up to date with a policy? Do you know what to do if you have a concern? Have you been briefed? I'm not asking you to deal with a concern, but being able to notify it to the right person. Are you following a procedure? Do you know the confidentiality rules? So there's lots of things that you need to think about, but the important thing is if you have an issue or you've seen something, you're not sure about it, or you want to safeguard the rest of your team, then you need to report it. Okay? So it's things that you need to think. Things will change, but it is important that we are safeguarding our customers, those people that want to skydive, and we're also safeguarding yourselves because you know the right approach to take. So I want you to keep thinking about it and how you do it. How you treat your customers.